In summer 2017, the world was blindsided by a digital weapon unlike anything before. Computers across the globe, from major corporations to government agencies, were locked and wiped clean within hours. The attack, later named NotPetya, wasn't about ransom. It was pure sabotage. Ports halted, companies crashed, and entire governments froze. This wasn't just a cyber attack. It was a brutal glimpse into the terrifying power of modern cyber warfare, where chaos can spread worldwide in moments. NotPetya's origin traced back to an unlikely source. A routine software update from a small Kiev-based firm, Linkos Group. Their accounting software, MEDoc, used by 90% of Ukrainian companies, had unknowingly become the perfect Trojan horse. In spring 2017, elite hackers breached MEDoc's servers and planted a backdoor. On June 27th, as Ukraine geared up for Constitution Day, a corrupted update unleashed NotPetya. The malware was already buried deep inside thousands of networks, primed to strike. Ukraine, long a testing ground for Russian cyber tactics, had just become the epicenter of a cyber war that would soon spiral far beyond its borders. On June 27, 2017 at 2 p.m., Ukraine was hit hard. Banks, ministries, and energy firms suddenly went dark. ATMs crashed, metro gates jammed, and even Chernobyl's radiation monitors failed, forcing workers to use manual Geiger counters. What looked like ransomware was actually a wiper, built for destruction, not ransom. Ukraine's central bank and major industries were among the first victims. Airports, postal services, telecom, and power utilities buckled. By nightfall, over 1,500 organizations had reported attacks. Emergency protocols kicked in, and officials claimed it was under control by the next day. But the damage was done. The malware had already jumped borders. What began as a targeted cyber strike was now a global catastrophe. Within hours of the Kyiv outbreak, NotPetya escaped Ukraine, infecting global corporations with lightning speed. It was a worm, self-spreading and unstoppable. Once a single machine, like one in a Ukrainian office, was hit, the malware surged through entire corporate networks worldwide. By June 28th, chaos reigned. Shipping giant Maersk, compromised through its Odessa office, saw its global operations collapse. In the US, trucks lined up for miles at a paralyzed New Jersey port. Mumbai faced similar gridlock. The malware spread by the second, overwhelming systems before IT teams could even respond. NotPetya didn't stop at Ukraine. Global giants were blindsided. Merck's labs halted vaccine production. FedEx's TNT Express went offline, derailing deliveries. France's Saint-Gobain shut down factories. WPP, a major UK ad agency, and law firm DLA Piper lost all communications. Even Russian firms like Rosneft felt the impact. Any machine linked to Ukrainian networks became a target. By June 28th, the malware had hit over 65 countries, from the US to Asia, unleashing a cyber pandemic that froze ports, factories, and boardrooms alike. Maersk, the world's biggest container shipper, suffered a catastrophic blow. 17 major terminals, from LA to Rotterdam to Mumbai, went dark. Cranes froze, gates locked up, and tens of thousands of containers stopped moving. Truckers were turned away, and global shipping descended into chaos. With booking systems and customer service offline, Maersk scrambled to keep ships running manually. One client called it the worst crisis in shipping history. In the aftermath, Maersk rebuilt 4,000 servers and 45,000 PCs, an IT recovery mission of historic proportions. Merck was hit hard, vaccine and drug production stopped cold, lab data vanished, and recovery took months. Losses? A staggering $870 million. FedEx's TNT Express couldn't track or deliver packages for weeks, costing $400 million. France's Saint-Gobain lost $380 million and had to lay off workers. Other companies took major hits too. Reckitt Benckiser lost $129 million. Mondelez of Cadbury fame lost $188 million. Even a rural hospital network in Pennsylvania had surgeries disrupted. NotPetya didn't just cause chaos, It drained billions from industries worldwide. Governments weren't spared. In Ukraine, ministries and state agencies were forced to ditch email for phones and messaging apps. Yet essential services hung on. Ukraine's power grid ran manually to keep the lights on. The financial fallout was staggering. Global damages topped $10 billion. The White House later confirmed the attack caused billions in losses across Europe, Asia, and the Americas. NotPetya proved that a single cyber strike could freeze both business and government operations and leave a multi-billion-dollar trail of destruction. NotPetya earned its name by mimicking the Petya ransomware, but it wasn't about ransom. It was pure destruction. Once inside a network, often via the MEDOC update, it spread like wildfire. It used the leaked NSA exploit Eternal Blue to hijack unpatched Windows machines, just like WannaCry had done a month earlier. But it didn't stop there. NotPetya also stole passwords using Mimikatz-based tools, then used admin functions like PSXSec and WMI to move laterally. The result? A self-spreading, unstoppable attack that overwhelmed networks faster than defenders could react. NotPetya didn't just spread, it destroyed. It rewrote the master boot record and encrypted core file structures, leaving machines unable to boot. Victims saw a fake CHKDSK screen, but it was actually encrypting their data. Then came a ransom note demanding $300 in Bitcoin, but it was a lie. There was no way to recover the files, no real decryption key, no working email to contact the attackers. This wasn't ransomware, it was a digital sledgehammer disguised as one. With unmatched speed and irreversible damage, NotPetya was a cyber weapon built to obliterate, not extort. As NotPetya tore through systems on June 27th to 28th, chaos broke out. IT teams sprinted through offices, yanking power cords and unplugging networks in a desperate attempt to halt the spread. At Maersk's Copenhagen HQ, staff shouted, "Shut down everything," while leaping over disabled security gates. It took 2 frantic hours to isolate their network, too late to save the infected machines. Similar scenes unfolded worldwide as companies hit the emergency brakes, pulling plugs to stop the digital wildfire. As NotPetya spread, Ukraine's CERT issued emergency alerts. One analyst found that quickly shutting down a PC during the fake CHKDSK screen could save data. Some admins deployed a crude vaccine, a read-only file named prfc.dat, to block the malware, but it only worked on untouched systems. By June 28th, cybersecurity firms worldwide, Kaspersky, Cisco, ESET, Microsoft, raced to analyze the code. They confirmed it was a wiper disguised as ransomware, naming it NotPetya. On July 4th, Ukrainian police raided MEDOC's offices, seizing servers riddled with outdated software and security flaws. The developer denied wrongdoing, but was blamed for negligence. By early July, the worm's spread had slowed, yet the road to recovery had only begun. The recovery was monumental. Maersk set up a round-the-clock global war room in England, teaming up with Deloitte to rebuild thousands of servers and systems. Local stores were cleaned out for new hardware. In a lucky twist, one Maersk office in Africa had been offline during the attack, preserving a single copy of their domain controller. That backup became the key to restoring operations in just 10 days. Others weren't so lucky. FedEx TNT struggled for over a month. As July wore on, CEOs everywhere asked, could this happen to us? The crisis had passed, but the search for NotPetya's origin and motive was just beginning. From the start, suspicion pointed to Russia. Ukrainian officials called NotPetya part of Russia's ongoing hybrid war, launched suspiciously on the eve of Ukraine's Independence Day. Security firms linked the attack to the Telebots group, tied to earlier Russian cyber attacks on Ukraine's power grid. Experts believed Ukraine was the main target, with global fallout as unintended collateral. By 2018, the CIA attributed the attack to Russia's GRU unit 74455, aka Sandworm, infamous for past strikes on Ukraine. Some believe NotPetya was not just sabotage, but also a cover-up, wiping systems to erase traces of long-term espionage. On February 15, 2018, The UK and US publicly blamed Russia for NotPetya. Britain declared it a Russian military operation masked as cybercrime, while the White House condemned it as the most destructive and costly cyber attack in history. Officials tied it to Russia's ongoing campaign to destabilize Ukraine and promised consequences. Russia denied involvement, calling the claims baseless, despite global consensus among intelligence agencies that the GRU's sandworm unit was responsible. In 2020, the US DOJ indicted 6 GRU officers for creating and deploying NotPetya. Though untouchable in Russia, the message was clear. This was no ordinary hack. It was a state-sanctioned cyber assault. NotPetya shook the world beyond the tech realm. It sparked geopolitical aftershocks and policy debates. NATO quickly pledged to boost Ukraine's cyber defenses. The attack became a chilling example of how a local digital strike could spiral into global chaos. Western governments saw it as a blatant breach of norms, a state attacking civilian infrastructure under a criminal disguise. The US, UK, Canada, and Australia formally blamed Russia, and sanctions followed, though critics argued they came too late. As cyber tensions simmered, experts warned the slow response only encouraged future escalation. The lines of cyber warfare had been crossed, and they weren't going back. NotPetya was a brutal wake-up call for the private sector. CEOs realized that a state-backed cyber attack could hit anyone, even by accident. Companies like Maersk overhauled their defenses, adding network segmentation, rapid patching, and multi-factor authentication. Maersk's chairman called the attack a very expensive wake-up call and turned cybersecurity into a strategic priority. Across industries, firms revamped disaster plans and cyber insurance policies. But when Merck and Mondelez filed massive claims, insurers denied them under active war clauses. Legal battles followed, and in 2022, a US court ruled in Merck's favor, forcing insurers to pay out. The case reshaped how cyber warfare is interpreted in law and insurance, raising urgent questions about responsibility and risk in an era of digital conflict. Years later, NotPetya stands as a defining moment in cybersecurity history. It proved that cyber weapons can cause real-world chaos, crippling over 2,300 organizations across 100-plus countries and racking up more than $10 billion in damages. Suddenly, cybersecurity wasn't just an IT concern. It became a matter of national security. Boards demanded to know, could this happen to us? Militaries adapted, and experts pushed for better patching, stronger network segmentation, offline backups, and frequent response drills. In Ukraine, the idea of a civil cyber defense took root in empowering both infrastructure operators and citizens. Globally, the attack sparked debate over digital rules of war. Yet consensus with cyber superpowers like Russia remained out of reach. NotPetya didn't just wreck systems, it reshaped how the world thinks about cyber war. NotPetya also changed the behavior of adversaries. Its massive global blowback may have taught state hackers to better control malware spread. Since then, new wiper attacks, especially during conflicts, have shown more restraint to avoid unintended fallout. Still, NotPetya's tactic of disguising sabotage as ransomware has been widely copied, blurring lines between cybercrime and state aggression. But its most profound lesson? Just how deeply connected the world is. A single compromised software update in Kiev disrupted vaccine supplies and shipping lanes across the globe. In cyberspace, distance offers no protection, and chaos can go worldwide in hours. In retrospect, the NotPetya cyber attack stands as a stark warning and a catalyst for change. It forced a reckoning with the reality that cyber war can have real-world victims worldwide, not just targeted nations. It reshaped policies, from how militaries consider cyber retaliation, to how insurers write policies, to how companies prioritize security. And it left a lingering question. If this was the most devastating cyber attack thus far, what might the future hold if cyber conflicts continue to escalate? The world that emerged after NotPetya is one more alert, more guarded, and better prepared, yet also painfully aware of the high stakes in our interconnected digital age. NotPetya's legacy is a lesson etched in history, that a few lines of malicious code launched in stealth can trigger a chain reaction of chaos that echoes across the globe, forever changing the discourse on cybersecurity, defense, and international cooperation. The worm is gone. The wreckage remains. If this blew your mind, imagine what's coming next. Like it, share it, spread it, because the next cyber war won't send a warning.